You're just going to fillet this sucker right off the bone?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Fish Out Northwest, waiting on Tommy Donlin.
This is what you call a bait stop.
Fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got.
Hello and welcome to Fish on Northwest, Wayne England. And yes, you may have noticed to my immediate right, this is not Thomas Donlin. This is by chance David Troutt, Director of Natural Resources for the Nisqually Tribe of Indians. Welcome back to the studio, my friend.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you and your audience.
Yeah, so you're not just sitting in tonight as my in-studio guest. You are now tasked with the co-host duties and responsibilities.
So now you tell me that.
You up to that task? Yeah.
I think I can handle it.
Perfect. So
I won't take Tommy's job. I think he's safe. But
I think he's pretty safe in that regard. But
Yep.
you are going to bring a lot of information that our folks tuning in tonight are definitely going to want to hear. I've been looking forward to this. You and I have talked a few times about getting you back here in studio, and here you finally are. And we got a lot of great information to get through. So I'm really looking forward to this. So welcome David Troutt back to the studio. We're going to get to him here in a little bit. Lots going on, lots to get through. Some fishing this week. Things are happening. If you're not on the water, you're missing out. Before we get too far along, hey, I want to say, first and foremost, happy anniversary to my lovely bride. 32 years today. Shing and I have been married, and just keep on moving ahead. So I want to make sure I let her know that even though we're doing the show here tonight on our anniversary, I am thinking about you. So happy anniversary, babe, and looking forward to after the show this evening, and maybe a little glass of wine or something. Anyway, also want to announce the winner of our Four Season Fighters free tickets for the annual gala tomorrow night, September 23rd. Get to attend that event. The winner, Jesse Tharp, ended up winning in that entry and drawing for those tickets. Jesse Tharp won, and him and his wife are going, and they're actually celebrating their 7th year anniversary this weekend as they get to attend the gala on free of charge. A little gift from us to you, from us here at Fish on Northwest, getting you those tickets to go and enjoy that night. It's going to be a great event. Make sure you attend and enjoy, and we'll check in to see how it's all going. Before we get too far along, I also want to remind everybody to jump to www.fishhuntnw.com. There you're going to find our coupon, FHN20. That will take you directly to Edge Fishing Rods, the website. We are connected with Edge Rods, so you should be as well. Go to Edge Rods, put in the FHN20 coupon at checkout, and you're going to get 20% off of all fishing rods that are not already connected to any other type of reduced price or coupon code. So with that, tons of things to get through. I kind of mentioned David fishing this last week. Since last week's show, I actually fished 3 different bodies of water, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. Some great Chinook and coho opportunity out there, and got moved around a bit and went after it in different locations. So we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But before we get there, running down the show tonight, David Troutt, as I mentioned, Director of Natural Resources at the Nisqually Tribe of Indians. South Puget Sound Chinook numbers, management, and what's going on. We got him in here to pick his brain. Then again, David Troutt, Nisqually Chinook. Mother Nature and a shift in genetics, I believe no one saw coming. So that's going to be an interesting discussion with you. I'm really looking forward to. FHN Quick Tip this week with Pro Escobedo, the VIP line lock. Why you should be using this component if you are not already. Also, the continuation of our egg curing 101, Baraxofire in mature egg skeins, how to make them durable. I'm going to show you how to do that tonight right here. And then we're back with you, David, puts you back in the hot seat. Pinnipeds, predation, and what position the tribes can take moving forward. This will be an interesting discussion to say the least. And then we're going to close out the show with a few of my fish reports from this past week as I bounced around to 3 different locations, as I mentioned. And a little reminder of some upcoming events in our waterfowl hunts that will be coming up in the near future in November and December. So Have you been out fishing as of late? You got any time to get out
No,
fishing?
I spend too much time in meetings talking about fish.
Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah, I need to find a way to get out to 3 different bodies of water.
Well, we got guys like you fighting for fish so that a lot of us can get out there and enjoy, and we appreciate that. A lot of the work that you do is many reasons why anglers like I have the opportunity to stand on the banks of the Nisqually River and try to go after those fall Chinook and coho and chum when they're available. So, but we have a lot to tackle tonight. We got a lot of topics at hand here. You're working diligently amongst the co-managers there, and of course the Northwest Treaty Tribes and all the work that you have going on. So we're going to get into all of that. First topic at hand when we come back from this break will be what's going on with this Nisqually River and preseason forecast and kind of how this season materialized. So don't go anywhere. More with David Troutt right here at Fish on Northwest. We come back after this break.
Defiance Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Defiance Marine guarantees the best price on a new and best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine is a boat dealer who proudly sells Defiance, Allied, and Arima boats. All boats are built by West Coast fishermen for West Coast fishermen. Defiance Marine has all your boating needs to help you get out on the water.
If you're looking for the best fishing rods in the world, you really do need to take a look at the Edge rods. I designed and built new machinery, and I think this new machinery has enabled us to build blanks like no other company can build without this equipment. There is no other rods in the world that are as good as these rods. You owe it to yourself to take a good look at them.
For more than 90 years, you've entrusted one brand to guide you towards living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. Now you can entrust affiliated Better Homes and Gardens real estate professionals to interpret your needs and help you find the home in which to live your dream. Through every stage of your home buying or selling process, and through every stage of your life, there's Better Homes and Gardens real estate. Expect better.
All right, welcome back in studio here. Dwayne England and David Troutt, my in-studio guests, Director of Natural Resources, Nisqually Tribe of Indians.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a very busy man, not to mention also the chair of the Puget Sound Salmon Recovery Council.
I take on a lot of responsibilities for the betterment of fish, I hope.
Yes, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
You stay very busy in this, and as you alluded to before the break, there are too many meetings, not enough fishing time. So you need to change that first of all, right?
Yeah, no
'Cause
kidding.
You're fighting so hard for the fish. But let's start off by talking about your backyard. So Nisqually, you know, it's had some bumper years, and we've had some years where we struggle. And preseason forecast coming into this year was what for the Nisqually?
It's about 14,000 in total.
14,000.
Yeah, yeah.
On a release from the Nisqually of how many fish?
About 3 million Chinook.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you happy with that number?
No.
No.
Not
What
at
would
all.
you like to see that number be?
We've had survivals back in the late 90s as high as 1.5% for
Yeah,
Chinook,
yeah.
and run sizes in the 40 to 50,000 fish coming back to the facility.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
That's what I would like to see. I think that's what everybody would like to see. So
Now it's about 1/10 of 1%. So
right.
it's
Yeah.
not good.
The 14,000 preseason forecast. Are we going to meet that? We're going to make it this year?
We're going to be really close.
Yeah.
We're doing our first spawn at our hatcheries next week, and we'll know more about how many fish we have on hand, but it's looking like it's going to be pretty close to preseason forecast.
Okay. So you have 2 facilities on the Nisqually that are planting those fish. You got the Clear Creek and the Kalama Creek.
Yep.
So Nisqually Tribe basically runs those 2 facilities, right?
Correct. Yes.
Where I get asked by folks, like on some of these tribal hatchery stuff, where do the funds come from to generate the ability to be able to run those facilities
Sure.
with tribal folks?
So the 2 facilities are funded differently. The Kalama Creek facility, which is our oldest hatchery we built back in 1979, was funded out of the federal funds that came out of implementing the Bolt decision. So soon after the Bolt decision in 1974, by 1977, the tribes were receiving funds from the federal government to run hatcheries and to manage our fisheries. And so the funds for Kalama comes from that. The funds from Clear Creek come from a federal case that the tribe brought on after the Bolt decision to get Tacoma to operate their dams more consistent with salmon and for human health considerations. And so we settled with the city of Tacoma, and in part they provide annual payments to us that we then use to run the Clear Creek facility.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that kind of clears that up. You kind of mentioned the numbers of Chinook coming, are being released into the Nisqually. McAllister Creek is also a contributor to South Puget Sound. So overall, Chinook numbers from McAllister and or Nisqually, and also coho numbers. You guys are raising coho, are you not?
About 1 million coho every year, mostly out of the Kalama Creek facility.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about hatchery practices. Now, you'd mentioned the one facility there built in 1979, and as science moves forward and we recognize better ways of rearing fish, raising fish, in the hatchery facilities, has there been some changes or more modernization to these hatcheries? Are we putting in any type of round holding tanks versus long concrete rectangular pens? Talk maybe about circular ponds, perhaps even some of the food sources you guys are feeding. I'm hearing some indications that some hatcheries are trying to really put out there more of a natural-based food source that these fish would be, it would be easier for the fish to make that adjustment into the wild once they get there.
So there's a lot there. Let me sort of unpeel the onion a little bit. Once the ESA came about in Puget Sound to list fall Chinook back in 1999, it really demanded that we take another look at the way we run hatcheries to be sure that it's consistent with our ability to recover fish. And so we've really revamped the way we run both of those facilities coming out of the ESA. We openly welcomed the Hatchery Scientific Review Group to come through our facilities back in the late 90s and early 2000s to have an outside look at what we're doing and then give us recommendations on how to go forward. And we've been implementing those recommendations ever since. And so one of the recommendations, for example, is to try to effectively increase the population size for your spawning population. You could potentially spawn all the females in a hatchery with a single male. And there was a time when hatchery managers would because it's just easier, would only use a handful of males, the biggest males, to spawn with all of the females. Well, that really shrinks the effective genetic population of the
narrow genetic pool there, right?
So
not
now
a genetic tree.
So now we're trying to do basically 1-to-1 spawning, one male per female.
Interesting.
It's a lot more work that way, but it tries to reduce the genetic bottlenecking that happens in facilities and hatchery facilities. Now our survival has gone down in the last 20 years pretty dramatically, more so than a lot of other South Sound facilities. And in part, we think it's because there are some genetic issues with this Green River stock that we are stuck with in the Nisqually. And so we're again thinking about bringing in some outside expertise to help us take a look at it. I work on this stuff every day in the Nisqually, my staff do every day. We're really close to this. It may be too close to be critical. And so having some outside eyes come in and take a look at it, I think will be a benefit for us. So hopefully this fall we're going to do that.
That's a perfect segue. As we come back from the break, we're going to jump into this genetic strain, this anomaly, so to speak, this natural migration of fish coming into the Nisqually that kind of caught folks off guard. Very interesting stuff. It all comes down to the science. And we're going to break that down. We come back after this break with more David Troutt right here, Fish on Northwest.
Allied, the new leader in heavy gauge aluminum boats. Allied boats have standard reverse chine and lifting rakes to help you plane faster and run at lower RPMs. Allied boats have several models to choose from, ranging from a 19-foot Mustang all the way up to a 32-foot Liberator. So regardless of what type of heavy gauge aluminum boats you are looking for, Allied Boats will have it for you. Contact Allied Boats today to learn more about these incredible fishing machines.
Hi, this is Joe and Megan from Archery World. We have 4 store locations. We are at the Lacey location right now. I just want to highlight some of our camping gear. We have Mystery Ranch packs. We have crispy boots. We have 6-hour optics. We carry Havalon knives. We carry Garmin products as well. So it's not just archery. We want to try to make this one-stop shopping for you guys. And so if you need it and it puts you in the outdoors, we probably have it. So come down and see us.
Welcome back in studio here, Fish Hunt Northwest, and my in-studio guest, David Troutt, the Director of Natural Resources for the Nisqually Tribe of Indians. David, before the break, we're kind of talking about Nisqually. You had mentioned, kind of throwing it out there, you know, the genetic strain, the recognized strain of fish right now, this Green River stock. And we've talked about this before, but to catch folks up on, like, historically, not just in the Nisqually River, but throughout Puget Sound, like, how did we end up with Green River genetic stock strain of Chinook in the Nisqually River?
Yeah, the Green River stock is in almost every river in Puget Sound. It was the first hatchery, one of the first hatcheries built in the state of Washington, and was used to seed all the other facilities from the Nooksack to the Skokomish to the Nisqually. And so that Green River stock has been everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're finding that it just doesn't work well in terms of a rehabilitation recovery stock.
Right.
It's worked okay in the hatchery, but I think we're experiencing now 100 years of it being in the hatchery, just not doing as well as it could have.
Yeah, and I think the mindset back then, like build a hatchery, breed fish, you know, get high numbers, seed them throughout Puget Sound, as you had mentioned, and we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know the 50-year, 75-year trajectory on this thing and how lackluster this genetic strain would be. I mean, those fish don't do well. They turn brown in the salt water, right? They got to come all the way down to the far south end of Puget Sound to get to the Nisqually McAllister, and they're done about the time they get there, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a high quality fish by the time it's getting to the river, and the survivability, and we've talked about this, and we're seeing it. I mean, you're planting almost 4 million fish out of the 2 locations, and we're getting 14,000 back. So there's some work to be done there. I know you guys are working hard on it. Let's talk a little bit about this recent finding, or is it so recent? You know, the first conversation we had of this, you kind of blew my mind, caught me off guard. Skagit strain, or genetically linked to Skagit River, wild fish, Mother Nature moving inventory, right?
Pretty amazing. So we're required under the Endangered Species Act to recover a stock in the Nisqually, and our assumption was that the Nisqually origin Chinook was gone. Well, we're beginning to question whether or not that's the case, because we are finding through a lot of different work that there is a unique stock, wild stock, that seems to be inhabiting the Nisqually, and it seems to be somewhat linked or closely tied to a North Sound, potentially Skagit fish. And it goes back to Jurassic Park, the notion that nature takes over, nature knows how to do these things.
Right.
We come up with this great engineered plan with all these scientists involved, how we're going to reintroduce Chinook in the Nisqually, and we go down this path with these Green River fish, and quite honestly, it's been a failure. Those fish just do not produce well in the wild.
Right.
And yet, unbeknownst to all of us, there's this wild stock in the Nisqually that comes in way later than these Green River fish, comes in way later than
So the
our
run timing
fisheries.
is significantly different.
The run timing seems to be very significantly different, and all the genetic work we're showing is that of the smolts being produced out of the Nisqually River, the wild smolts, almost all of them are coming from this other stock that we don't know much about. The Green River fish are producing very few smolts.
Yeah.
And so this potential North Sound colonizing stock in the Nisqually seems to have taken hold and might be where we focus our recovery efforts.
So would that include some type of, utilization of that stock or strain of fish, hatchery environment, brood stocking program? Is this kind of the discussions that will begin to happen to see which direction this should go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have choices to make, and in the science coming out of some of the work in the 90s and 2000s, you basically have 2 choices. You can isolate your hatchery program and keep it as distant from the wild population as possible, manage it that way, or you can integrate it with the wild population. And so we have a choice to make.
Yeah.
And there are consequences to either choice. If we
Right.
try to integrate, we're worried that we might move these fish closer together in run timing and conflict with our desire to catch fish in the recreational fisheries and our fishery.
Yep.
So our thinking now is maybe it makes sense to manage these as 2 distinct segments.
Yeah.
Maintain a strong hatchery population where we can fish really heavily on them, and then lay off of these wild fish and let them recover. And so it might be having our cake and eating it too.
You meet your wild fish resurgence requirements. I mean,
exactly.
Basically, you got this later strain, which you could be like, okay, either what does that mean? River closed. There's no tribal fishery. There's no recreational. We're going to let these fish, gain in strength and numbers, and look down the road and see what those numbers really look like.
Right.
But what a great opportunity. And the irony here is, how many discussions I've had with fishery managers and biologists and stuff, and we got to minimize strays, and we can't have river, fish coming from this river and getting into this river, and we just can't be mixing stocks and strains and blah, And here we have what is predominantly a potential North Sound genetically strain of Chinook that's entering into a South Puget Sound River. all on its own. Mother Nature just going, I'm going to just push you down here to, reestablish a wild run.
Well, and if you think about it from the eyes of a fish, if they didn't stray, we would only have Chinook salmon in one river in the world.
100%.
So they do stray to try to find new habitats, and these fish may have strayed a long time ago. The geneticists are thinking they've maybe been there for a long time.
Interesting.
And we just haven't seen them.
Very interesting.
And so how we manage that population and what we do with it to the benefit of fisheries. I mentioned that these Green River stock were having genetic issues potentially with their survival. Do we incorporate some of the wild genes to provide some additional capacity there, genetic capacity, or do we bring in another stock somewhere and reintroduce those genes? But we've got to do something about our hatchery population and then think about how we manage that relative to the wild population.
Right.
But the other thing I think is really interesting, Dwayne, is that in the Nisqually, we've been doing hatchery fish for 70 years. And all the things that have gone on in the Nisqually River, and yet there's still this wild fish that seems to be surviving that has not been impacted by these hatchery fish. So this notion that you can't have hatchery and wild fish in the same system, we may be giving a different answer to that question.
Interesting thought, and I like the direction that is going. Okay, never enough time to get through these topics, but we're doing the best we can. We're going to jump out for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Come back after this break. This week's FHN Quick Tip with Pro Escobedo.
Contract Security Service provides day-to-day peace of mind as they protect people and property. Here at Phoenix, we provide service for multiple state and federal contracts with services ranging from uniform, patrol, alarm monitoring, canine detection, executive protection, as well as investigative work. Recruiting highly qualified officers is the first step in building a strong team. If you are prior military or law enforcement, go to www.phoenixprotectivecorps.com and apply today.
New days, new beginnings, new friends, new loves, new dreams, new goals, new scenery, new job. No matter what the next chapter holds, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate will be there to help you find the new that's right for your lifestyle at any stage of your life. Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. Expect better.
Sportco, an outdoor emporium, is the largest local outfitter in the Northwest since 1975, providing thousands of people affordable outdoor gear. This summer, make your next outdoor adventure more affordable by shopping at our warehouse-style pricing. We are a local Scotty dealer, offering sales, service, and repair. Located in Fife and Seattle, come visit us today. The outdoors await you.
Yep, for sure.
Oh yeah, big fish. Yeah, buddy. Nice fish. Oh, beauty. Gorgeous fish.
Bobby's on the board.
We got a good one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, oh, geez, come on.
Nice fish. Nice fish.
Hey guys, Pro here at VIP Outdoors. We're gonna be talking about our line locks here. Our line locks are something that we came up with a few years ago based on a necessity that the 360 Dodger created. Essentially what it is a weight slider that does a couple different things. Number one, it slides up and down your line. It's 3/4 inch wide, so you don't have a pinch point on your line, so it distributes the weight across the period there. But more importantly, what it does is it has a groove molded in the back. That groove slides over the top of all 6-speed chain swivels, whether it be tornado swivel, ball chain, whatever it is, okay? So it locks it in place. Once you put a weight on there, what happens is it dangles, and then because of the rotation here, all of the line twist that's created by your Pro Troll and your spinner no longer transfers up your braided line. It's all absorbed within your 6-speed chain swivel. So any application where you have excess rotation that creates line twist, our line lock there is the way to solve that problem.
right, welcome back in the studio here. Hopefully you picked up on a few tips there from Pro Escobedo, VIP Outdoors. If you haven't or are not familiar with Pro, check out everything he's got going on at VIP Outdoors and look into those sliding line locks, man. I've been using them this year finally, and they flat out get it done. They're impressive. So you mentioned something right before the break that caught my attention that, you know, basically you're saying hatchery and wild fish can coexist.
Isn't there a sticker somewhere around here that says that?
Yeah, there's a big movement in regards to that. Friends of ours, and we've had them in studio multiple times, and I think, you know, I would like to see a shifting of the tide, so to speak, and that we are recognizing through science and sound science and not agendas that hey, we do have wild fish making a bounce back. And oh, by the way, for 30 plus years where we have removed hatchery fish in all these different rivers, we cannot truly document a tremendous uptick in wild fish recovery.
Right.
And that's an important analysis, I think, to pay attention to, because where is your where is your data to support your claim that hatchery fish are in a huge impact on wild fish?
Right, and then the other side of that, you know, for 30 years we've been cranking out 4 million fish out of the Nisqually, and for a long period of time before ESA, not really caring too much about where they spawned.
Right.
And it appears that they have not had any impact on this other population that's in the river.
That is.
So they might be able to coexist.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. I love when science puts one in our favor, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And hopefully we're on the road to recovery. So really good stuff with David Troutt. I hope you're enjoying it. We have more in the second half of the show, so don't go anywhere. If you're tuning in for the first half hour here, that's going to do it for us this week here on Root Sports. If you're tuning in live tonight via the live stream, don't go anywhere. Much more with this man, a bait lab, and a few other things to get to when we come back. Second half of the show right after this break here, Fish on Northwest.
Sergeant Daniel Moulter began his tour of duty on October 21st, 1996, and ended his tour on June 27th, 2020. On the authority of Constable Carlos B. Lopez of the Travis County Constable's Office, Precinct 5, badge number 504 is officially retired, and Sergeant Dale Moulter is 1042. Godspeed, Sergeant Moulter.
Honoring fallen law officers of 2021. The 2022 End of Watch Ride begins in May from Spokane, Washington. The ride across the country to honor the men and women of law enforcement who paid the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our communities will cover more than 23,000 miles. We ride to ensure that no fallen officer or their family is ever forgotten. EOW relies on sponsors and donations to cover this cost. Please consider donating to help support the families and departments of the fallen officers. You can donate by visiting our website at www.endofwatchride.com/donate. Please support the Blue.
Hi, we're Joe and Megan Malico, owners of Archery World up here in Lacey.
We're a full pro shop, so we have a full pro service also. We have a huge indoor range. We carry 11 bow lines, all the major bow lines, and then there's subsidiary companies too. Like if we carry Bowtech, we carry Diamond. If we carry Matthews, we carry Mission.
When you come in, we're going to ask you, what kind of price point you're looking for. What's your hope, what's your goals, what's your bow. And with that information in mind, we'll point you in the direction of, that price point bows, and then maybe give you the option to test fire, maybe a higher level bow, just so you can compare. But it really is all about getting what it is that's going to work for you.
We don't upsell anyone. They shoot it, they like it, they don't like it, they don't get it. We don't operate like that. And so if you need it and it puts you in the outdoors, we probably have it. So come down and see us.
Welcome back in studio here, Dwayne England, and my in-studio guest and co-host. Don't forget that portion
Thank you.
of it, David Troutt. Yes. We're going to take a pause here on our conversation. We got much more to get to later on the show here. Don't go anywhere, because I'm going to really drill down with David here on Pinniped, predation issues, what the Northwest Treaty Tribes can do about this, what the Nisqually Tribe, can do about this, and kind of the direction things are going. But before we get there, we have the third installment of our Bait Lab series, Egg Curing 101. Now, the last couple of weeks, been talking mostly sodium sulfite and sulfite-based cures, tighter skeins, out of fish the skeins that are not so mature and beginning to weaken and become loose. So tonight, I want to walk you guys through utilizing Baraxel fire, some changes we can do to Baraxel fire to actually use it in an environment where your skeins that you're harvesting from fish might be a little more mature, a little looser, a little less skin. How do I make that a durable bait that's going to fish well? Now, a couple things. Not only do we do bait labs here for our show, but from time to time we produce stuff for Potskis and Potskis TV. The last few weeks I've had so much egg curing going on, I didn't want to duplicate effort. So this next segment is a pre-record on the topic I just spoke of for Potskis, but it's all the same information that we put out there. So I just thought we'd share that one with you tonight. Bait curing, egg curing 101 with Baraxel fire on mature eggs. Check this out. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Hey everyone, Dwayne England, Potski Bait Company, and we are back here in the bait lab. Today we're going to talk about curing mature salmon eggs and some things you can do that will make a more quality bait, one that I think you'll appreciate and one that actually fishes better. Longer duration on the hook, a little more durable bait, and there's a few things we do to achieve that. So we've talked in the past about fire cure, how it's a phenomenal cure for salmon roe, for fishing for salmon in the rivers, tributaries, what have you. These eggs here are from Chinook salmon out of a tributary river, so they're quite a bit more mature. And what I mean by that is these skeins have begun to open up. The skin is beginning to break down on the sides of them, so you don't have as much connective skin keeping all the eggs together. So when the skin becomes loose and the eggs become a little more loose, using something like a fire cure isn't going to toughen up the skein and make it a little more durable bait that will fish multiple casts. It will cure the eggs and they will catch fish. You're going to probably find that you get a cast or two out of them. They milk out relatively quick, and the looseness of the skein that you started with, they begin to come apart relatively easy. So oftentimes we get asked, well, how do we toughen up our skein to make it last a few more casts or make it a little more durable? So years ago, I started using Baraxel fire, which now understanding this cure, there's no sulfites in here. This is ideally engineered to cure roe that will fish for steelhead. It's salts and sugars and borax. And so it does have properties in there that do, in fact, toughen the skin or the skein just a little bit. Going to make it a little more durable bait. Without the sulfites, though, you may question whether or not it has enough bite stimulants to entice salmon. Yes, it does. It works very well on its own. I like to utilize Baraxel fire a majority of the time in the fall when I've harvested eggs out of mature salmon because of this reason right here, looseness in skein. And Baraxel fire works very well. I do add a few things to it to make it even a little more enticing to salmon with some bite stimulants and whatnot. I will take a full bottle of Baraxel fire. I'm going to mix in 1/4 to 1/2 cup of white refined sugar, okay? 1/4 to 1/2 cup. I like to have differences in cures. A full 1/2 cup mixed with this full bottle, 32-ounce bottle of Baraxel fire. I'm going to fish those eggs low in a system, low in a tributary, tidal water influence. Those fish seem to gravitate towards sweet tooth, and they like that little bit sweeter bait coming right out of the salt. As they get up further in the system, it seems like they switch to more of a sulfite and sodium-based type of cure with less sweetness to it because they've been out of the salt water for a bit. So sugary mixes near the salt water in the estuary waters and just above, and of course higher in the system, I go more to a sodium and a sulfite. So 1/4 to 1/2 cup sugar depending where you're fishing, if that matters to you. So 1/2 cup, we'll say 1/2 cup of sugar with this 32-ounce bottle, 2 heaping tablespoons of our fire-powered krill powder. I like to add the extra krill, and a heaping tablespoon of sodium sulfite. I like to put in 1 heaping tablespoon of sodium sulfite to this 32-ounce bottle. You may think that that doesn't sound like enough or it's not much. Well, I don't want it to be a strong sulfite-based cure when curing these looser eggs, but I do want to have enough in there that does add, in fact, bite stimulants and things that attract salmon, fall salmon. So I have these eggs pretty much cleaned up. This one here has a little bit of blood left in it, so we're going to get the excess blood out of here. Now I can take the flat side of my knife and push that blood down to the main vein that runs at the bottom of your skein, and I can pop a little hole right there. We're gonna just use a paper towel, and I can move that blood along the vein there. Now these eggs have been in the fridge for a couple days, so the blood begins to coagulate and get a little bit tougher to move. So if you find you have a little trouble moving that along, you can put a little bit of water on the top side of this skein here just to keep it moist, and it helps to keep the knife from tearing into the skin, allows it to glide easier. And see, we're moving that blood right down out of that vein there, getting a majority of it out of the egg. Why do we get the blood out? Well, the eggs cure really well. The blood tends to not cure so good and adds a little bit of spoilage to your eggs and begins to have a foul odor. So I always try to get as much blood out as I can, and that there is pretty darn clean. So now I got these large skeins. They're mostly opened up. This one here has a little skin intact up here. I'm gonna butterfly these open a little bit just to make sure we get the cure in there. Also, because they're so large, we're gonna cut these in half, okay? And kind of make them into smaller sections just so they're easier to handle as we cure them. This one here is completely opened up. I don't even need to butterfly that one. And this one here will cut into 3 separate sections. A sharp knife is very beneficial when you're taking these apart. It pops far less eggs and gets right through the skin, doesn't tear the eggs or destroy them. So now we got these opened up, and I'm just trying to stack them on this paper towel. I like to add the cure while the eggs sit on a paper towel, because as you'll see when I pick this up, if it all stays together, it's easy to put it into the gallon Ziploc bags that I like to cure the eggs in. So now I have my eggs ready to go, blood-free, opened up, ready to accept the cure. I have my pre-mixed bottle of my Baraxel Fire with my sugars and my Firepower krill powder. I love that extra krill. I really think it is a great bite stimulant. You need to put that on your eggs if you're not doing so. And of course, a little bit of sodium sulfite. Now, this is not a real hot cure, so the so-called burning of the eggs doesn't really happen. I don't have the sulfites in there weakening the membrane of the eggs. I actually have more borax and salt in here with the added sugar that is going to toughen. So I can put a pretty good amount on here because I'm just simply putting it on the egg side. I'm not gonna turn them over and do it all on the other side as well. Now I take my gallon Ziploc, I've marked on there my identifier for my number 2 recipe, or which is the mixture of my Baraxel Fire here. And with the paper towel, I can just simply pick it all up, slide it into the bag, and dump it off like that. Now, if I look in here and I think I need to add a little more cure, that's the nice thing about the wide open bag. I can sprinkle a little more on here and call it good. So I like to leave enough air in the bag that allows me to roll these around and get the cure working into the eggs, okay? And what I mean, you'll notice as it begins to work, the moisture gets drawn out of the eggs, the juice starts coming out of the eggs, and you'll start building a certain volume of juice in here. One thing I like to do always is to add extra color to my eggs. I really like the fire dye, the dark red, as it adds a tremendous amount of color. Now, maybe where you fish, you use orange, or the pink. That all works as well. The UVs in the pink especially is fantastic for certain fisheries. I like here in the Pacific Northwest, we fish a lot of dark red eggs, and the Baraxel Fire adds a lot of color, but I like to add even a little extra color, and I like to add a little extra juice. Now you don't have to, but sometimes I will take these and add a little bit of the Potski nectar because it's just egg juice, and it helps just plump those eggs up and volumize them even more so that when they're going down river, they're sending down a tremendous scent trail that you can literally see when your eggs hit the water, okay? And then I'll take the fire dye. This is basically a bottle of 4 to 5 tablespoons. I'll add about a tablespoon per bag, and I know just past history, there are a couple squeezes on that. I'm getting about a tablespoon into there. Again, that's just gonna add extra color. Don't worry about the fact that it runs down the sides. I mean, that's why I purposefully spray it off the side of the bag so I don't just put it right on top there. This allows me to now roll these around, and over the course of time, all the eggs are going to cure evenly. The color distribution is going to be equal simply by tumbling these around. Again, I leave plenty of air in the bag so there's room and separation. And it allows me to, massage that cure into these eggs. So 24 hours, 12 will work. I like 24 hours at room temperature, allows the eggs to juice out maximum potential and then reabsorb as much juice as they can. So I will literally take these every couple hours during the daytime as these sit in my garage. I come out here, I tumble this bag around every so often and keep that juice moving, keep the color distribution equalized, and just really maximize the potential for these eggs to cure. Again, it'll release a bunch of juice. When you see all that liquid in the bag, do not dump it out. That does not mean you've added too much cure. It's exactly what you need the eggs to do. Let them juice out, and then after a while, they begin to absorb that back in, and you're gonna find that there's far less juice in your bag by the next day. One thing you can do is you can leave it laying flat overnight, or after about 12 hours or so, I'll even set those down to the bottom there and make sure they're completely surrounded by juice. At that point, you would have a lot more juice in the bag. And I will push the air out of the bag, okay? And I will roll that down and I will let that sit there in that juice for the next 12-hour phase, and it reabsorbs all that juice back into the eggs. And really the next day when you check on these, you're gonna see it's gonna look very much like this. There's not gonna be a lot of juice left in the bag because it's all reabsorbed back in. But it's a process that has to take place over a 12 to 24-hour period. So these eggs would be much more plump, a lot more color, equally distributed throughout, and then they're definitely cured. So after 24 hours and they've reabsorbed the juice, I can take these now and I can put them in the fridge for a few days. I can go ahead and freeze them. I can put them into a bait tray or some type of container, get them ready for the boat or for the river bank. They're ready to fish. I would give it a full day in the garage, a full day in the refrigerator, and then you can fish them. So just a couple little things you can do there to toughen up mature eggs this fall season, and give that a try. That recipe has worked for me for years, utilizing the Baraxophyre for your fall Chinook eggs or coho eggs. It does really well, and I think you'll be happy with the results. All right, that's going to do it for us here in the Bait Lab today. Give that a try, and thanks for watching.
Well, welcome back in studio here. Hopefully you enjoyed that Bait Curing 101, Baraxophyre and mature and or adult Chinook eggs, and some things you can do to make a much more durable bait. I can tell you that over the years, fishing that exact recipe in the fall throughout in the greater Grays Harbor region, out on the coast, even some of the northern rivers, Chinook and coho flat out respond to that recipe. It's the higher amount of krill, a little bit of sugar in there, and just the sprinkling of that sodium sulfite with those bite stimulants really does a nice job. And then of course, if you're adding any of that dehydrated sardine powder, any of the other powders I've taught you over the years how to do, that's just an added bonus, and it works tremendously. If you guys want to know more information on dehydrating fish baits, how to grind it into powder, and how to apply that to your cures, let me know. We can certainly bust that one out in the Bait Lab here in the near future to expand your opportunity there. So hopefully a good amount of info there, and some of you can use it. And if you do, go out and find success. Please let us know here at Fish Hunt Northwest. Love to see the pictures of you finding success. Okay, we are going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, more with this gentleman right here. Pinniped predation, Hood Canal blockade, how about smolt survivability, outmigrant, and a number of other things on the docket. More in fisheries recovery and science. We come back here with David Troutt, right here at Fish Hunt Northwest.
A Northwest favorite for almost 40 years, Arima boats are manufactured with pride in Bremerton, Washington. All Arima boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why Arima boats are backed with a lifetime warranty. Arima can offer every boat with Honda outboard packages so that you can take advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Call or stop by Arima Boats today and let them help you get into your very next boat.
If you're looking for the best fishing rods in the world, you really do need to take a look at the Edge rods. I designed and built new machinery, and I think this new machinery has enabled us to build blanks like no other company could build without this equipment. There is no other rods in the world that are as good as these rods. You owe it to yourself to take a good look at them.
Welcome back here in studio to Win England. My in-studio guest, David Troutt. If you missed it earlier, Director of Natural Resources, Nisqually Tribe of Indians. You're also the chair of the Puget Sound Salmon Recovery Council.
Correct, yep.
Yeah, a lot going on there. And as you mentioned at the start of the show, far too many meetings and not enough fishing, which he needs to change that behavior.
No kidding.
Very soon. So you and I have had multiple discussions over the years, and I always appreciate the insightfulness you bring. And one thing that we cannot ignore is the amount of Pinniped predation, not just in Puget Sound. Columbia River's been an ongoing issue. Some movement there to get moving forward in controlling some of these. And they have some factual numbers that they brought out at the Willamette Falls, for example, a couple years ago. They removed 33 adult sea lions, California sea lions. They saw a tremendous uptick in wild steelhead survivability that immediate next season, from like 800 the year before to 3,400 that immediate year, right? By removing 33 sea lions just in that particular area. So you guys have recognized the Pinniped predation issue within the Nisqually Delta in this region. How big of a factor is that in, having successful recovery in the Puget Sound and South Puget Sound?
Right. Well, I think what would be helpful is if in the bait lab you would have like seal recipes, because that could help promote the discussion. Maybe
that involves Tommy talking lead and ammo load, trajectory of bullets, and
Tommy, hurry back, get in the studio here.
which gun we should be using is how that all comes out. But
we have that discussion all the time in my office.
Yeah.
So we've been working on steelhead recovery in particular in the Nisqually for a long time. It was listed again in 2005 as being threatened. When I started back in '87, it was the strongest wild run outside of the Skagit in Puget Sound. It was about 8,000 fish strong.
And to be clear, the Nisqually has never had hatchery production of steelhead.
These are all wild, genetically unique fish.
In the South Puget Sound, Nisqually River. That is one thing you can stand and tip your hat to, is that they've never transitioned to a hatchery support program here.
Right, and we were desperate. It's at low points that we thought about it, but the risk was too high and the benefits were too low. And so the population dipped from 8,000 down to 500 almost overnight and hovered around that number for about 30 years. And put it in context, our escapement objective is 2,000.
Yeah.
So we haven't met our escapement objective since 1992.
I thought you guys hit it in about 2015 or 16.
It was really close.
Okay. It was just right under 2,000.
Yeah,
we were
it was
19
like 8
and some change.
Yeah, 18 plus.
What's interesting is, I look at the upper watershed system of this Nisqually Basin, the Little Michelle up there above Eatonville, and all the contributing little creeks and streams, and the gravel and just the natural state of a lot of that stuff. It looks really healthy. It seems to be healthy.
Yeah, on the surface it is, but there, if you dig a little deeper, we've got forest management issues in the Michelle Basin, the big tributary to the Nisqually that produces steelhead. And the way it's currently being managed, it's resulting in less habitat and less water for steelhead and coho.
Interesting.
And so there's complications going on. But relative to the Pinniped stuff, we The Nisqually still produces a lot of smolts, steelhead smolts. The fish that do spawn are very successful, and we have the biggest smolts in Puget Sound, so they're big and healthy as they leave the Nisqually.
Oh.
But yet, coming back to the Nisqually, survival is really poor, and we want to better understand that. So we started putting in acoustic tags into the bellies of juvenile steelhead and then tracking their migration through Puget Sound. And a couple of things that were really interesting. One, it only takes 13 days to get from the Nisqually to Port Angeles. So these fish are booking through Puget Sound.
2 weeks,
so food is probably not the issue for these fish. But the survival between the Nisqually and Port Angeles is about somewhere between 5 to 8%. So 95% or more of these fish are dying in 13 days.
Didn't you guys discover this back in the late 90s?
It was mid-2000s.
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 Yeah.
And so as we put out more tags, we were seeing this again and again and again. And then we noticed when we had the transient killer whales spend some time in South Puget Sound in May, coming down to feed on seals. They're marine mammal eaters. And when they came down into South Puget Sound, those years, the survival from the Nisqually to Port Angeles went from 5% to 30 to 40%.
Interesting.
Massive increase.
And to repeat, these are the transient orcas, not the south resident.
Exactly.
The south resident are not seal eaters.
Right, they are pure fish eaters. These are just mammal eaters. So either they're eating the seals or at least they're affecting their behavior so the seals are out of the water.
Interesting.
The other thing we've noticed is that when we've had big anchovy spawning incidents in the upper parts of our inlets, the seals will move up into those inlets to feed on the anchovies, and our steelhead make it through. And again, we see 30 to 40% survival to Port Angeles. So those two things really say there should really be a smoking gun around seals.
Sure.
It is the factor that's keeping our stock from recovering.
Right. Well, there's another blockade too that impacts the outmigrant survivability of steelhead in Salmon, but the Hood Canal floating bridge. And I read a recent report on some engineering factors that are going to be implemented, I believe starting this winter. And they're trying to build a floating device that is going to negate the 90-degree blockades, and there's several, I think there's upwards of 6.
I think 6 or 7,
that these fish get caught up in, and then it sounds like the Pinnipeds, that's just like a royal fork for them in that location as well.
Yeah. For whatever reason, steelhead out-migrate in the top 2 feet of water.
Yeah.
They don't go any deeper, and so they're migrating through Hood Canal, and there's this big blockage across the entire area of Hood Canal except for a few spots. So these fish are hitting the bridge and looking for ways to get around it, and they're running into these weird 90-degree angles that create flow problems, and so they get stuck. And as they're stuck in these whirlpools and these flow issues, seals are very smart, and they figured out there's easy pickings going on there, and they've just absolutely destroyed the steelhead populations in Hood Canal. So long live the kings, the tribes, the state have been working on some ideas to change those flow patterns around the bridge to maybe make it easier for the fish to get through. And so they're going to do that. We're trying to find fairly low-cost engineered solutions before we get into, do we have to lift the Hood Canal Bridge or completely redesign it?
Right. Oh my gosh, talk about billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm hoping these above water, these suspended or floating barricades will help in negating the trap zone, so to speak, of where these smolt are finding themselves.
Right.
So one question that comes to mind, the Northwest Treaty Tribes is a powerful group that gets a lot of things done. And, are they raising a flag on the Pinniped issue? Can they carry a lot of weight back to D.C. and make some changes? Is it the Marine Mammal Protection Act that is the blockade to keep us from getting or having the ability to move forward in mitigating and removal of some of these pinnipeds throughout Puget Sound region?
Yeah, I think the answer to 3 of those questions is yes.
Yes.
The tribes are concerned. The tribes are active and mobilized. The tribes are talking to their federal delegation and the federal government to try to do something. Unfortunately, that process moves really slowly and not fast enough to really be helpful. And so we've got to go out and look for allies that are out there and willing to lead. And as I was talking to you earlier, we've got a congressman who came out to visit the Nisqually from Arkansas, Congressman Westerman, who yesterday introduced a modification to the Magnuson-Stevens Act to allow for hunting of seals and sea lions in Puget Sound to support salmon recovery. And so that kind of action, along with changes in the Marine Mammal Act, will allow us to go out there and manage these populations to see survival of steelhead go from 5% to 30% for the Nisqually. It'd be huge.
Is this a 2-year trajectory? Is this a 5-year trajectory? I mean, things take time to get through the federal level, right?
Right. I think that originally we were thinking it was maybe a 10 or 12 year trajectory, but I think because of the leadership of Congressman Westerman and the active involvement of our delegation, it could be a 3 or 4 year thing. So it could happen sooner rather than later. It does take time.
Oh yeah.
But hopefully not as long as it's taken the macaws to get to hunting a whale again. It's been 20 years.
Yeah, crazy. So, look, you sat on the Orca task force as well. Lots of meetings, lots of decisions came out of that, and an effort to get higher returns on our salmon, Chinook predominantly, to feed the orcas because the orcas are starving. A simple-minded individual like me sits back and goes, well, this is great. We're going to dump all these salmon smolt into Puget Sound, albeit net pens or contributing hatcheries out of certain rivers where we're not impacted by ESA restraints and all those things that weigh in. But we're going to dump all these smolt into Puget Sound in an effort to get more returning adult salmon, but we have an out-migrant issue with all the Pinniped impact. And so aren't we just truly feeding the Pinnipeds before we ever get a chance to have adults returning to feed the targeted goal of the South resident orcas?
It sounds like you were sitting in a lot of the Orca task force meetings.
Going, we can't keep feeding the monster,
right?
And not do something about it first.
Right. I mean, not only are the Pinnipeds, seals, and sea lions especially affecting things like Nisqually steelhead and hook and house steelhead, but they're eating the food that should be feeding also southern resident killer whales.
Right.
So by doing nothing about their populations, we're making a choice. We're making a decision that we favor them over southern resident killer whales, over treaty tribes, over non-Indian recreational fishermen. And so it's time to start managing these populations in a way that supports the ecosystem. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the transient whales that are dependent on seals.
Right.
So we got to be careful that we don't eliminate their food supply. But there's science and there's a balance point to be reached that'll support salmon and killer whales and fishing, and we're not there yet, but we need to get there.
I think the goal is to train the transient whales to stick around Puget Sound for a couple of years.
Yeah.
There's plenty of food here for them.
Yes.
Just, stay here and eat.
We need to be able to drop a fence at the Tucumán Bridge when they come in and keep them down for a while.
SeaWorld. Puget Sound. SeaWorld, right? Yeah, definitely something needs to be done. I'm going to switch topics here before we get out for a break, but a few folks are asking or have indicated, man, are we ever going to get crabbing back South Puget Sound Area 13? What's the problem?
So I wish I had a good answer for that.
Yeah.
The answer is not anytime soon.
Right.
Unfortunately, for the non-Indian folks or for the tribes, the work that we're doing in my office and my lead biologist on this have concluded that our crab come from the ocean. So 90% of the crab that live in South Sound are young ocean crab that float in on the currents and then settle out in South Sound. But it requires the right current conditions and wind conditions to favor that transport. And we haven't had that transport in over 20 years.
Really?
Now, there was a time when we
completely shifted?
It's completely shifted. The timing is off.
Current shifted?
And for a lot of times, there wasn't any of the currents going on at all.
Interesting.
And so it requires a spring offshore wind flow associated with the currents, and it hasn't aligned in almost 20 years.
That's
and a lot
crazy.
because of the blob and temperature issues in the ocean being a lot warmer. So until that shifts, and you probably remember, and I remember being able to go down off the mouth of Nisqually and catch these monster crab in no time.
Yeah.
We had a tribal fishery. We caught 120,000 pounds one year, and there were a lot of crab.
Yeah.
But we haven't fished in 10 years because they're just not there. And so until we see that shift in the ocean, we're not likely to see very many crab in South Sound, I'm afraid.
I think South Sound's going to end up, you guys are going to have to develop a crab hatchery and go out there and seed Puget Sound with baby crab.
We're talking about bull kelp and eelgrass enhancements. We're willing to do that as well.
Hardening of the shorelines. If you and I talked well over 15, almost 20 years ago, is another
that is my
here.
Soapbox.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, hardening of the shoreline. So, okay, really good information there, David. I appreciate all of that. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back. Got a few fisheries to catch up on. Been out poking around a number of different areas this last week since last week's show. Fishing is good. If you're not taking advantage of it, you are missing out. Also going to remind you on a couple of events we have coming up and some hunting dates for waterfowl, all that and a little bit more as we close out the show here with David Troutt, in-studio guest and co-host for this evening here, Fishing on Northwest.
All Defiance boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why all boats are backed with a lifetime warranty. All Defiance boats come standard with large fish boxes that are fully insulated so that you can ice your fish properly all day. All Defiance boats are foam flotation filled and unsinkable for the ultimate in safety while fishing offshore. Before you buy any boat, stop by or call Defiance Boats today to ensure you are getting the very best glass boat your money can buy. Cutbacks in funding and fewer law enforcement resources are affecting our businesses and communities. If your business is feeling the effects, Phoenix Protective may be the solution you are looking for. They offer security solutions customized to meet your needs. From remote video monitoring in their 24-hour control center to a proactive, experienced security professional on site, Phoenix Protective has over 20 years experience in ensuring the safety of their customers. Team members are highly trained and proactive, giving them the ability to adjust to the changing needs of their customers. Customers choose to work with Phoenix Protective because they provide the next level in security support to industries such as schools, hospitals, transit, and utilities. For a security assessment to see how Phoenix Protective can help you and your business, visit their website at www.phoenixprotectivecorps.com and select Contact.
Welcome back in studio here as we wind down the show. So last week after Thursday, that Friday headed south about 2.5 hours, jumped in the boat with Pro Escobedo and Alex Mozloff from Edge Rods. And Pro's just a fantastic individual to fish with. If you ever get an opportunity, I highly recommend it. But mid-stretch there in the Columbia Gorge area below Beacon Rock, and did not take us long. There are so many Chinook coming up into that Columbia River below and above Bonneville in the areas that's open. If you have opportunity right now to go after Chinook or still want to go after Chinook, don't think because you get above Bonneville the genetics are so bad that those fish are going to be brown and taste terrible. I'm here to tell you, and Herzog and I have pointed out a number of times, those fish are built for mileage, and those spring Chinook that enter that Tumwater Creek facility up there on the midpoint of the Wenatchee, they have a total of 700 miles to migrate to get to their spawning ground. So, genetics are an amazing thing. If you never take an opportunity to get in on some of those Chinook above Bonneville, check out some of those fisheries going on up there or now below that it's reopened. You got a 1-fish limit, hatchery or wild Chinook. And the water is pretty warm, 60, if I remember right, 62, 63 degrees. Definitely a spinner show or a Brad's mini cup plug, kokanee cup plug with some tuna is going to get it done. 360, short leaders, lots of whip, 16 ounces of lead on your troll. And it's pretty matter of fact. It's for those that have it dialed, they're doing very well. I was on the receiving end of just the opportunity to jump into somebody else's boat. That individual Pro is named aptly because that is his home waters. That's his backyard, so to speak. Definitely a great opportunity to get out there on that Columbia. Lots of fish around. Go get yourself a Chinook. And then bounced up here to Area 10, put the downriggers back on the boat, went up to Area 10, fished coho for a day, got some friends out, got into some coho. My buddy Matt Messing jumped on, marking tons of fish. I mean, rods should have been going off every other pass, and I guess the anchovy bite's been pretty good up there as of late. A few friends of mine have been spinning some anchovies and doing well. You're up higher in the water column. You don't have to worry about the dogfish grabbing your bait and whatnot. So. And
are you out in the shipping lanes and over deeper water?
Yeah, we're in that 300 to 600. You're off the shoal side. Anywhere from the oil docks down to West Point. That entire stretch seems to be fishing pretty well. And lots of fish, man. They are just kegging up in there. I gotta suspect this coming weekend here that the Everett Coho Derby is going to be well attended. Going to be some nice fish, and if you're up around that Skagit area, those bigger fish coming in, I think that's going to be a Derby winner. It might take a 14, 50-pound fish to win this Derby.
That'd be nice. Edmonds wasn't as big. It was like a 12-pounder at Edmonds.
Yeah, it was just sub 13.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
So they should be 15, 16s.
Them coho, when they get to this point in migration, they strap that feed bag on. They're putting on a pound a week. So tons of feed out there, tons of food for them. And they're nice size. And then, of course, out here more the coastal region area where I fished yesterday, going back tomorrow, out in the harbor area. Man, who doesn't want to do a shallow water coho fishery? And these coastal coho are second to none, David. You know, I've been fishing passionately out here in the rivers and whatnot for just over 35 years now. And I'm here to tell you, any of these contributors, like the Sats up in the Wainuchi and the Hump Tulip, Chehalis Basin, those fish that enter out into those waters, you know, they come past through Westport there. Some of the best coho stocks we have in this state. This state, as a fishery manager and one that oversees a lot of fisheries, you understand what this region can be and what it has been on some years.
I remember fishing the Satsup when I was in school and catching 18, 20-pound coho.
Yeah.
They're just amazing fish in that river.
They're still around.
Yep.
They're still around. And so you have time to intercept those. The beauty of this entire region out here is we have a 2-fish limit through the end of October in some regards, depending where you're fishing. Non-select. And that, again, that carries through the end of October. What's interesting is we're not going to get any rain here, I don't think, looking at all different weather projectors and, you know, river level projections and all these things that I try to weigh in on and see what Mother Nature is going to do. Now, that could flip within 48 hours, and all of a sudden we got a storm that moves in, right? But the long-range forecast would indicate we're not going to get any substantial rain that's going to bump these rivers to possibly mid-October. When that happens, those fish stage up out in the salt water. They're going to be in the lower stretches of these bigger rivers on the tidal influence. They're going to move in, they're going to move out. So you adjust your fisheries accordingly. It's like the drift boat stays in the driveway, the pontoon boats stay in the driveway. It's either going to be the big boat out in the salt water or a foot on some of these lower stretches where you can fish tidal water with bobber and eggs and twitch and jigs. So these rivers will be opening that aren't open right now, October 1, which is just around the corner. And again, we're going to have low water, so don't, you know, you may think you're going to go to your favorite fishing hole, either float down to it or walk in, and there may just be a trickle. Some of these streams right now are 200 CFS.
Right.
And so the fish aren't moving, a few of them, but not the numbers that you would want, and certainly not the numbers of fish that need to be into a hole that's going to entice a big group of biters. So, you know, the old adage, when it's low, fish low, this is one of those key years, probably to almost mid-October. You're going to need to stay low in the system. Salt water is your friend. Low tidal influence portions of the river is where to be. So it's going to be an interesting next several weeks, that's for sure. Take advantage. There is a lot of fish coming, man. I am excited. Before we get out of here, want to remind everybody we have our dates for our waterfowl hunts with Shelby Ross Outdoor Adventures. Coming up here, we have 2-day hunts, a 2-day duck hunt, 2-day combo duck, or 2-day duck hunt. Hunt number 1, arrive November 6th, hunt the 7th and the 8th, 2 days of duck hunting, 2 nights lodging, dinner included, both nights, and $375 per day. Hunt number 2 be arriving December 12th, hunt the 13th and the 14th, 2-day hunt once again. It's a day of duck, and Wednesday the 14th is a day of goose hunt. We got 2 nights lodging, dinner included both nights, again $375 per day. Call Shelby at 509-750-7763. Book your spot and get all the finer details from Mr. Ross Outdoor Adventures. It's filling up quick. We have a maximum of 12 spots per day for any and all of the hunts, and they will fill up. Folks are chomping at the bit to get out with us. We had a great time last year, looking to do that again this year. So those hunts are on the calendar, and we can't wait to get over there. It's going to be a good time.
I'm going to call when I get home.
Are you?
Yeah.
You going to join us?
I may have to do that.
Yeah, it's if you want to do a double duck hunt and or 1-day duck, 1-day geese, it's just it's a special place over there. You hunt potholes all that much?
It's been a while, but I used to.
Perfect.
Yeah. And that price is a bargain.
Yeah, especially for lodging.
Yeah.
And dinner both nights.
Yeah.
And you'll get treated to some duck kebabs and treats in the duck blind during the day, so you really don't even need to pack much food. And you're too busy shooting ducks anyway, so just a really good time.
That
and then,
awesome.
you know, other dogs to retrieve. You just got to sit there and pull the trigger. Shelby and guys do all the calling. We're just there to have fun, mingle with folks. Yeah, it's a great relaxing time. We'll have a lot of fun. So I'd love to see you come join us. That'd be a good time.
That would be fun.
Yeah, with that, hey, I want to thank you for coming in.
You bet. Hey, Tommy, you know, this feels pretty good. I've been looking for a second career, so if ever you're out, just let me know and I'll cover for you, man.
Yeah, there you go. You're welcome back here anytime, especially with the information you bring. I hope you guys enjoyed the information this gentleman threw out for us to regurgitate and digest, understand kind of some of the other side that's going on in fisheries management and things that we're all working towards. You got your thumb on it, man, right here in the Nisqually Delta and with the tribe and all the work you're doing, and just nice to hear from the other side of the co-managers from time to time, just so we kind of keep up on what's truly going on. I appreciate your willingness to come in and share your insight, man.
Absolutely love it.
Really good stuff. All right, that's going to do it for us this week here, Fish Hunt Northwest. Thanks for joining us. Check us out on Root Sports if you haven't. We're pretty much on every Saturday, Sunday morning. Check your local listing. Saturdays is usually about 9 a.m. Sunday, somewhere 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then sprinkled throughout the week on a Wednesday or Thursday. You can find us on Root Sports. First half hour of the show each week is then put up on Root Sports multiple times throughout the week. So check us out there and please enjoy. Take our content, share it around, jump to our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe and follow if you would. And invite all your friends to join the party each and every week. Get out, get some fishing done through the weekend. Weather looks fantastic and the fish are here. Have a great night. We'll see you next Thursday right here at Fish Hunt Northwest.